Oh my God.
What was that?
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
It was thunder.
Oh, there it is.
Crazy.
Well, sound travels.
Incredible.
Everyone, if you hear thunder in the background of this podcast, we're not going to edit out because we don't know how to do that. But also, it's thundering and lightning out.
We can figure it out.
What is it? What's the Fleetwood Mac song about thunder?
Oh, wrong.
Thunder always happens when it's raining. That one.
We don't have the rights. We don't have the rights.
I only sang like 2 seconds of it.
Sing the Glee cast version of it.
What if I just sing it really fast? They won't know. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Fic List.
Welcome back to the Fic List.
We are the same people we were 7 minutes ago. Very little has changed.
If you're coming from directly from the last episode, you know what's happening.
Yep. If there's 2 weeks between the previous episode and right now, it's only gonna get weirder. So, buckle in, friendos.
Here's your disclaimer.
Hello, Alan.
Hi, Erin. How we doing?
I'm hot.
Yes, you are.
Because, well, okay, stop it. But also, like, it is legitimately toasty in my apartment because I have to turn the AC off to record. And my apartment without AC is like a nice little brick oven because it was built in the 40s. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of fucking asbestos in the walls somewhere. But it's very, very, very warm. So it's fun.
So just so you all can appreciate the sacrifices we make for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't complain. It could be a lot worse.
Sure.
It's fine.
But that doesn't
I have an AC unit.
But that doesn't negate, how you're feeling.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Alan.
Of course.
Okay. Anyway, how are you doing, buddy? In the last 3 minutes since I last saw you.
I'm getting very hungry.
Oh,
and so I am excited to eat dinner whenever we finish recording.
Yes. Because this episode is recorded via Skype, which is very exciting. What are you planning on eating since I am not feeding you currently?
Whatever DoorDash brings quickest to my door.
I do understand. I am currently on a bit of a spending freeze. I have to
Good
stop
for you.
because I have enough food in my house, and you got to stop, Erin. So I think it's gonna be a scrambled eggs kind of night.
That's awesome.
Because I can't turn on my oven.
Yeah, I feel that.
So.
I don't like. I have 3 roommates, and every now and then we share a very small fridge, which means that I can't buy a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's frustrating, but also fine, I guess. I mean, I've lived with it for 2 years, and it's been chill. But that just means that I end up ordering food a lot more than I probably should.
Yeah. I used to have the same problem when I had roommates, and then I moved into my apartment, and I'm the only person here, and my fridge is one of the quote-unquote apartment-sized fridges. It's not even a full-size fridge. And I was like, all around me are familiar faces. Because I cook like crazy.
You do.
Like, I love cooking. Well, I don't love cooking in the summer because it's too warm, but I really love having like bulk meals and just like making one pot of something that will last like 5 days, and it's great. So to have a teeny tiny little fridge after all that, I was like, no. But it is what it is. It's okay. The fan fictions that we are discussing today have nothing to do with housing other than the fact that people in the fics live in houses that require the services of
refrigerators.
No.
I got stuck on the fridge.
Firefighters.
Yes, it's firefighters here on it's AU week.
That was not a good segue. That was a profoundly bad segue.
We warned people. This is what you all are getting.
True. All right. So yes, it is AU week, and we are talking about Firefighter AUs because it came to us when we were picking tags, and I was like, it's hot. We should talk about firefighters who are also hot and also fire.
Yep.
That was the thought process.
Loved it.
So smart. Much brilliant.
Can I say, I feel like I had the experience you had last episode with time loops, where I was depressed at so much of the firefighter fics I was reading, I was like, why is everything so sad?
Wow.
It was so intense.
We had very different experiences.
We did.
Because I was like, hunky firefighters. Climb ladder to me. That was like my whole thought process. But also I had a fic already in mind. Like I this one was in my back pocket, so I like didn't have to go looking.
Good for you.
Yeah. So maybe I would feel differently if I had to like go find a thing. But a lot of the firefighter fics I read, which I do tend to just sort of stumble across them, and I do enjoy them heartily when I do, they tend to be a lot of like, I rescued your cat from a tree.
Yeah. I did read a lot of those too. Here's my other thing.
Yeah.
I found myself... Listen, no one was more shocked than I when I got tired of all of the like hunky firefighter like tropes. Like the more I read about them, the less I cared. I was like, oh, there it is again. Yeah, and I don't know if it's like,
wow.
I don't know if it's because my brain has been mush for all of Pride Month, or if it's just that I wasn't in the space to read them. But everything I read, I swear to you, I was like, I've read this one before. I've read it. I don't need it.
I'm making myself laugh, and I have to tell you why, because I was going to be like, that's homophobic. I was like, don't say it, and then I started laughing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about?
It's so funny.
And that makes no sense. It's fine. That is interesting, though, that you were like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah.
I was I was on the truck. I was good.
you were. That's really funny.
It's like, great.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. It was like, please, bridal carry me wherever I need to go. It's fine. Let's do it. I'm on board.
I love that for you.
We did have very different experiences.
We surely did.
Fascinating.
We surely did.
That's okay. We're allowed to have different. We can hold two truths at once.
And in fact, listeners, I think that's more of a benefit for you. Two totally different points of views. You know?
Yeah, it'll make for a better episode. She says, entirely unsure if that's true. So, okay. Well, is there anything about Firefighter AU, like, were there any things that you were like, this is the thing that like grabbed my attention, or like the thing that I was like kind of okay with overall? Or was it all just like, no, I'm not into it?
I like that the firefighters were always hot and muscly.
I mean, legit though.
I was like, this is great. I think I like the idea of firefighter role play. I don't know that I would like want to date a firefighter. I don't know that I have the constitution for that.
Yeah, I think it is fair to say that firefighters inhabit a space that is very dangerous in real life, and like, again, fantasy being much more appealing than reality in certain ways. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure there are many lovely firefighters, but they have to contend with a very real part of their lives, which is that they put themselves in great danger constantly. Like, that is their job. Yeah. And so I can kind of goof around and be like, ooh, hunky firefighter, but like, at the end of the day, that is not what the reality is for these people who are actually in this job. Right. So if that sort of like permeates what you're thinking about, then it makes it a lot less fun to be like, hunky firefighter who could die at any time in a terrible accident. Oh God. You know, it's like a very different beast. There's that sort of existential angst that's like right there.
And you know what? I might have shot myself in the foot, because I think the first firefighter fic I read to try and like find a fic for us was very sad and depressing and like was heavy basically. And then maybe I haven't thought about how that affected the rest of my search. Maybe I wasn't able to buy into the fantasy.
It often does come up though. Like even in the one that I sent you, which we'll talk about later, like they do have to contend with that. Like if you're going to do a fic that isn't just like, you know, plot situation, right, then you inevitably in that kind of scenario do usually contend with some kind of dangerous situation, or something happens and they have that moment of like, I had to go to the hospital and I didn't know what was going on, and like that would be scary in real life. That would be terrifying. 1000%. So it's not surprising to me that like got into your brain a little bit and like put a damper on things.
Yeah, and I think here's the other thing is because I was so stressed and like basically I was running out of time, and I narrowed my search even further and just did single chapter searches, which I think don't lend themselves very much to that development of that like very real look at what a relationship with a person who you know risks their lives every time they go to work is. And that is entirely my my thing. Like because of where I was mentally and the availability that I had, I might have clubbed myself in the legs with a fix I was reading. So it's fine.
We're good. We're gonna get through it.
So what are some of the things that you like in Firefighter AUs, Erin?
Well, I feel bad talking about it now because you were like, very serious answer about the harsh realities of it. And I'm like, they're hot.
both things can exist, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate you. I do love that interplay between like the potential for just like very sweet, like it can be very rom-com-y in the kind of way that like you could have a really good like Meg Ryan movie where she like falls in love with a firefighter, right? Like, that's the thing.
Yep.
But there's also that opportunity for like actual moments of like high drama and conflict and that kind of stuff, which I think is really great. So I love that interplay, and like it's like vampires. There's just something inherently attractive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
get it.
Agree.
I get it.
I agree. Yeah, and it's interesting. It must be something like about like the hero type thing, like a hero complex almost.
Well, the other thing that is perhaps a little specific to me, or like people who have had my particular experience, I know a lot of queer women firefighters, and specifically like EMTs and like people who generally are in fire and rescue.
Yes.
And hot damn. Oh, hot damn.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So.
What you all can't see is Erin has turned red like a tomato.
Like Larry? The tomato?
The tomato.
Yep. And we're not gonna worry about it. But yeah.
Qué triste el tomate.
That does it for me. Stop it. Yeah, so queer women firefighters, mwah, chef's kiss.
Love that.
What a gift y'all are.
What a gift.
Yeah, there's something really just particularly lovely about a very stacked, like very strong lesbian firefighter.
Yes.
Who doesn't want that? Like, who does not want that?
I want that for you.
I guess men, but yeah, I guess men. But you know, it's a fairly niche thing, but like, damn.
Love that for you. That's amazing.
Thank you. So who wants to start?
I think you should start with what I sent you.
Okay, great. You sent me, in a true return to form. We were so proud of ourselves, friends. In our previous episode, we forgot to say it 5 minutes ago, so we're saying it now. We did 2 whole new fandoms, like 3 whole new fandoms.
3 whole new fandoms. The whole episode of
new
fandoms, and I can't believe that we just didn't acknowledge that. I feel like we deserve medals.
Right, we definitely deserve at least a bronze in this situation for achieving the bare minimum. But so in a true return to form, we are not going to do that this episode.
No. I hope you enjoyed
No.
one episode this season, and that's it.
You get one. Yeah. That's fine. So the fic that you sent me is a Teen Wolf fic. It is Derek Hale and Styles Stalinsky.
It sure is.
Yep. And it's called Shots Fired.
Yep.
By author Kits_Lightning. And the summary says, "Shut up." He clicked his radio on. You're going to have to help me with this name. Mahilani?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say it with the caveat that somebody might be able to correct me on this, and I apologize if I'm butchering it. This is Mahilani. I need an ambulance at my 20. Officer down. I repeat, officer down. I need an ambulance. The coldness in Styles' arm was replaced by pain when Danny put all of his weight on it. Wow, Jackson rubbed off on you in a negative way, he joked through gritted teeth. Yeah, well, at least I had the decency to call a bus. Styles could hear the sirens at a far distance of what he hoped was an ambulance getting closer. Yay, maybe Scott will be on call, he said with clear sarcasm. Scott was one of the best paramedics in the town, but he was so going to yell at Styles when he finds out he got shot. If you think Scott's going to be mad, wait until your husband finds out. Italic. Fuck. So, this is a short fic, as Alan said. It's just shy of 5,000 words, single chapter, one-shot situation. The tags are hilarious to me. Near-death experiences, angst with a happy ending, hurt comfort, life-affirming sex, anal sex, blowjobs, coming on touch, Derek Hale, bottom Styles Stalinsky. For some reason, life-affirming sex was like delightful to me.
I loved it.
And it's a very accurate summation. Like the tags are very real. So basically, Styles and Derek are married.
Yes.
Yeah, they're married, and Styles is a deputy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a deputy, and Derek is a firefighter, and they're having a bit of a tiff.
A small tiff, if you will.
A little tiff, because Derek has had lunch with his ex and didn't tell Styles about it. And Styles is like, why wouldn't you just tell me? Why wouldn't you tell me? I don't understand why you didn't tell me. So he's kind of like fuming. Then he gets called out to a situation in progress, which he just has to like kind of set aside his personal woes and go show up, at which he gets shot.
This is Styles.
Styles, yes. It's a whole thing. I can't tell them apart. I've never seen the show. I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to get confused the way you get confused with Quentin and Elliot, which,
fully, yeah.
Whatever is fine. So Styles gets shot, and he's still mad at Derek, but he's like, I guess I have to go to the hospital. So he goes to the hospital. He's like, okay, it's fine. And so this the summary was an excerpt summary from that, that situation where he's like laying on the ground. He's been shot in the arm or whatever, and he has to go to the hospital. And he's like, well, I guess we're calling a bus. And it's like, fuck. And so Derek, meanwhile, is at a like 5-alarm fire somewhere on a terrible call and hasn't been able to like connect with Styles, and like hasn't gotten any of the calls that he's in the hospital. And then he finally like hears like his manager, his captain, whatever, is like, you need to go. And he's like, what? And he's like, he's in the hospital. He's alive. And of course, Derek is like, that could mean anything. What does that mean?
Yup.
You need to give me more specifics than that. And so he just like gets in the car and like books it. So he gets there, and they have to like talk through being like Styles is like,
Yeah, because part of the thing here is that when Styles approached Derek about this, so they're working separate, very different time schedules, I think, right now, where usually they don't. I think Derek is like on the night shift when usually he's on the day shift or something of that sort.
Yeah, they're working at odds.
Yeah, he gets home and he's exhausted, and Styles brings up the fact that he had lunch with his ex, and he's upset about that, about why Derek wouldn't just tell him. And Derek basically says nope, turns around and goes sleeps in the fire station. Basically, he's like, I'm not dealing with that, I'm too tired. And he goes and basically hasn't spoken to Styles in like 36 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a long time since they talked to each other.
Yeah, and so now with Styles being shot, and Derek is panicking, it's really making Derek think about like, oh, I can't take that for granted, even if we have fights and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. So he goes to the hospital, and they talk it out. And then he takes him home. Yep. And then they have life-affirming sex. And that's the fic.
Dun.
It is a speed run, my friends. This is the opposite of a slow burn. It is a speed run.
Opposite of a slow burn, it's a speed run.
And they also, like, as they're having the life-affirming sex, at one point, Styles says, I'm already going to be sore tomorrow, Dare. I'd like it if at least some of it came from life-affirming sex. Good job. It's like when you say the title of the film in the movie. It was great.
I also love the, like, how there's that, pardon my French, but there's that, like, term hate fucking.
Yes.
I love this version
That's
of it.
what you were, like, a little, like... I'm gonna like preface this with my
I don't know, dropping the F-bombs every now and then whenever it's like in casual conversation, it's not me like being angry or like really passionate about something, feels odd, like just dropping like fuck, and it's like ugh.
Oh, it does not feel weird to me. It's part of my daily vocabulary.
Good for you. No, same, fully same. It just felt weird in this context, and now we've drawn attention to it, so now I'm really self-conscious.
Oh no. It's fine, it's all good.
Yeah, I like that it's like a softer version of a hate fuck. Basically, it's like, yeah, It's a hate fuck it's like all the passion of a hate fuck, but with like nice feelings afterwards.
It's makeup sex, but they're still a little mad at each other.
Forgot about makeup sex. It's so funny.
Yeah, so it's that they're not fully resolved yet, but they're like mostly made up, but like a little bit not. Yeah, and that's coming through. So they have their life-affirming sex, and it's great. And then there's a tiny little epilogue about how like Styles is doing his physical therapy exercises, and Derek comes in with flowers, and Derek's like, okay, how many flowers are you gonna bring? It started to look like a botanical garden here. And they have this little like, sort of epilogue-y like wrap-up conversation about Derek going back to work, and
about Styles going back to work.
Styles going back to work. Thank you. Styles going back to work, and Derek being like, no. And then Styles is like, well, they cleared me for active duty last week, but I waited another week to calm your nerves, so I have to go now. And they're like, okay, fine. And that's basically like, the end of it. And that's the fic. Yep. That was a short summary.
Ba-da-da-da-da.
This was fine. It was certainly like it was what fanfic does best, which is clearly for people who are in this fandom, enjoy this ship. It is a cute little like cupcake of a fic. And they were like, yep, I'm on board. This is great. My one complaint is that it's not really a Firefighter AU. Like, it's not even mostly about one character over the other. Like, Derek happens to be a firefighter, but it's only referenced insofar as like both of them have dangerous jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of like
Sure.
how it's used. They don't go too deep into like his like being a firefighter, like making it a thing.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of firefighter mechanics in the
Right.
film.
Yeah.
The film.
In the film. So that's like my one thing. Like if I'm gonna read a Firefighter AU, I do want it to be a little bit more like there's certain tropes and stuff that I get into,
I feel
but
that.
as you said earlier, you were falling apart from those. So I'm not surprised given your preface that this is what you came up with, but like I leaned the fuck in. So
Good. I'm glad.
yeah,
It helps that this is a tag that you seem to be very fond of.
it kind of it reminds me of vampires and like pirates and stuff like that, where I'm just like, yep, I'm on board.
It's so fascinating. I feel like every time we have an episode, I feel like I think I know where your tastes or like your likes, dislikes for tags are, and they're always wrong.
Yeah,
Every single time.
it's because I'm fickle. It's because there's no logic to it.
I love that about you.
Yeah. So I think I tend to go for AUs that are not too complicated, right? Like there's the potential for there to be like a lot of world building, but there isn't a whole lot of sort of like, there's some element of familiarity to it. Like I know firefighters, I understand pirates, like vampires are a common enough thing in storytelling that like it makes sense.
I see.
So there's some
Yeah,
sort of like
okay.
base layer of understanding there, as opposed to things with like, you know, soulmates or ABO, like that doesn't exist in the real world. So you always have to construct some kind of alternate reality.
Right, and having to buy into like whatever the mechanics of that
Yeah.
are.
And I have to like, there's more of a like jump to get to those mechanics. As opposed to like, yeah, I can put anybody in a firefighter's outfit. I get it. Cool. Great. Awesome. And you could get it more complicated than that.
It's nice to know.
Yeah. So cool.
What would you give that fic?
Like a 3.
Sure. That's good.
Nothing to write home about in terms of like, but it's not for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's
this
like
is clearly
it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's for someone who likes Teen Wolf and wants to read just like a fun little smutty thing.
I feel that.
Which fair. I do that with magicians all the time. I get it.
Yeah, nice little comfort read.
Yes, 100%. That was the fastest I've ever reviewed a fic.
Well, that's good because we've got a a beast of a fic coming up.
I did this to you. I have done this to you.
You sure did.
I did this to us both. Technically. Uh-huh.
So, moving on to talking about what you sent me. You sent me a fic entitled Where There's Smoke.
Yep.
It is written by Stony, and it is a Glee fanfic with our boys Kurt and Blaine.
Who is surprised?
And this is found on LiveJournal, actually. It's not on Archive of Our Own.
Yeah, we basically stopped saying this is on Archive of Our Own because they're always there, but this is a LiveJournal fic.
You might have. I always say it.
Rude.
It's just part of my breakdown in my head. Yeah, so this was on LiveJournal, which is, it's always fun to come back to like LiveJournal and read something on it. It just feels like, oh, old friend, how have you been?
And it's more complicated and harder to use. So
Yes, absolutely. But it's nice. It's nice to every now and then like get out of the Archive of Our Own. Like just try something new.
Yeah.
Or old in this case. Vintage.
I also forgot how old this fic was, but it was posted in 2011.
I believe that.
Oh no, it says it.
Yeah.
It says
No, I believe that. And like as reading through it, I would give you 2011. Absolutely. So why don't I tell you the summary, friends? Summary. Fireman AU, set 7 years after graduation. Kurt is Kurt, except he never met Blaine Anderson. Blaine grew up in Brooklyn with his mother and firefighter father. Rachel and Kurt have graduated NIADA. Kurt gained a master's from Tisch, and now they're in their first post-college apartment together, ready to tackle their dreams. Unfortunately, Rachel never learned how to properly cook and almost sets their new house on fire. Enter Dreamy McFirepants.
Yep.
And that is a great summary. That's a great blurb, not an excerpt to be seen.
Yeah, 100%.
Good for them.
Well done.
Yeah. I need to preface this by saying I feel like more so in recent years, it's probably because I've been on TikTok and there's been just like learning more about Glee and like the character and the actors and all of that, and like watching clips on TikTok when people are like and it's a show that you cannot rewatch.
No.
It does not hold up at all. It is
It
not
aged, it aged like a fine glass of milk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was shocked and devastated because obviously Glee was around when I was in high school, and that was like I was a little Glee head, if you will. So I loved it. But and it's just everything is so sad. I mean, recently, just maybe not even a year ago, Naya Rivera passing away was devastating, and all of the resurgence of people talking about Leah Michele being an awful human being, and having Leah Michele be the center of that show is so it's just hard, I think, for me now to like go back and reread Glee Fix, which is a shame. It is an utter shame because there's some great gems out there.
Yeah, it's hard. And like also the show itself did not age well.
No.
The content of the show is is very set in the time that it was in. And it was kind of like one of the things that I think tends to happen a fair amount, particularly now in the sort of digital media age that we're in, is that things are dated quicker than they were before. Because like it exists in this space where like the internet was a thing, and like it was very of the moment, and then that moment passed fast. And for the better, like it's better that we don't treat people the way that that show handled certain things. But like you can absolutely pinpoint it and look back, and it wasn't that long ago that like we all thought that was okay, or at least we like saw it and we were like, okay, like willing to tolerate it as part of this other thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there were people who were ahead of the curve on this, looking at it being like, y'all know this is trash, right? And like they were right.
And
they were correct.
What's even crazier is, if I remember correctly, like Glee was lauded for its like its diversity, like for the actors and for like the storylines that they chose to explore. That is crazy that what was seen as progressive in 2009 when the show premiered is not at all like okay in 2021.
Right. And we look at that now and we're like, how was this ever on TV? Like, how did we allow this to happen? Like, oh my God. Also, the other thing that like I still can't figure out is why they were allowed to write Will Schuester the way that he was written.
Yeah, oh my God.
Like,
oh my God.
This is the worst TV teacher of all time.
Yep.
Like by far. Do you know what is a cursed piece of information?
Oh, I feel like I know this. Is it that he and Leah Michele were dating?
Yep, it is.
Yep.
And I have to be cursed with that information, which means y'all have to be cursed with that information.
Yep.
It's bad. It does start to make sense, though, when you're like, oh, I understand why he's so creepy. Because they were all of the same age. And, like, there were not clear boundaries there. And, like, it did not... this is the problem with having, like, fully grown adults play high schoolers.
Agreed.
It's just, it ends up being super weird. So, yeah, I think we can also put a big asterisk next to this one and be like, Glee was fucked up. We can accept that. It's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway,
on that happy note.
That being said, I loved this fucking fic, which
thank God.
Of course I was gonna love this fic. Erin always nails it with the Klain fic. Like, I don't know how she does it, but it's great. I've had a decade good.
To curate. That's how.
So, going into the summary, the fic starts off basically with what the summary says. Rachel and Kurt have just moved in to their new apartment in Brooklyn, and it's like also like anyway, I'm just like, I feel like you wouldn't be able to. I don't think you can afford to just live in a place like that with just two people. But anywho's, suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, it's a fanfic. If that's the most unbelievable part of your fanfic, you're doing something wrong.
So Rachel and Kurt have just moved into their new apartment in Brooklyn, and to christen it, Rachel wants to cook their first meal. Like, she wants to break in the oven. Cut to her burning the tofu that she was trying to blacken, according to her. She was trying to flambe some tofu, and it all went up in flames. And the apartment is full of smoke, and they don't have a fire extinguisher because they don't have one. They just moved in, and Kurt's like, I haven't unpacked the fucking baking soda. Oh, God. So they call the firefighters. They come in, basically like shoot the fucking pan with the fire extinguisher, and they're like, all right, just let it air out, it'll be out soon.
It'll be fine.
The smoke will be gone soon. And Kurt meets one Captain Blaine Anderson and makes a complete fool of himself trying to flirt because he's like, this guy's hot,
as one does.
As one does. And Blaine is not totally unreceptive to it. And Rachel has been flirting with another firefighter named David, who presumably is a character that I am not aware of or don't.
I believe he is a minor warbler, if I remember correctly.
Is he a warbler?
I think
Nice.
he's a warbler.
Nice. So Rachel's taken by this minor warbler. Like she's flirting it up too, and she's like, "Oh, and how would we like? What is your like squad number so that we can like find you and thank you with some cookies or something?" And Blaine like leans out of the window as they're driving by and gives them the number and the squad number and says, "And the boys really like oatmeal raisin cookies," and like winks at Kurt. And so Rachel's like, "Get it in."
Do it. Do him.
Do
it. Do him.
So they make cookies, and then literally within 24 hours, because I think Rachel was like, we have to get him while he's still on shift. They go to the firehouse and with cookies, homemade cookies, and Rachel's flirting it up with David, and David says, "Oh, well, the captain's sleeping. You know, we just came off a really long shift, so, but I know he'll appreciate the cookies." And Kurt's like, "Oh, so I was freaking out about coming here for nothing. It's chill." And he's like, "All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave you two lovebirds." And as he's walking out, he bumps into Blaine, who has like sleepy hair, sleepy face, and is like, "Cookies?" Yep, exactly my feelings.
Here's the thing. I am not particularly interested in men anymore. That's like a thing.
Good for you.
There is a place in my heart for sleepy boys.
Oh my God, so cute.
There's something about it. It's like the softness of it, maybe.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't know.
It's like getting to see people when they're like, I don't want to say like vulnerable, but like when they are just like starting up. There's a vulnerability there, an intimacy that you're like, oh.
Yeah. 100%.
It's endearing, yeah.
It is. It's profoundly endearing.
So that happens, and Kurt's like, "Hi, I made you cookies, bye," and runs out the door. And Blaine, I think he gets to see Blaine try one, and Blaine's like moaning around, and like, "Oh, it's so good," and Kurt's like, "I have to go." So either later that night or the next day, shortly after, Rachel gets home and is like, "Hey, we're going to karaoke night with these firefighters. Get dressed." And Kurt's like, "Oh, I don't think so. I don't think that's really the scene for me." And Rachel's like, "We're going. Put on your fucking clothes." And so they go to karaoke night, and Kurt is like very decidedly like, "I don't care. I'm not here. I'm here to chaperone Rachel. I'm not here to like possibly see the captain. I'm not here for that." Blaine is not there. And he's like, "Oh, bummer." And so he's sitting at the bar by himself while Rachel is flirting it up with David, and it's karaoke night. So of course Rachel Berry's on the stage the whole fucking night.
Of course.
And Kurt meets Wes, who is a firefighter in the same like squadron, and they have a really good conversation. And Wes like mentions that his girlfriend is like a buyer for this very fancy boutique, and Kurt is like, "Oh, absolutely, I will make friends with this person so that I can get the discount." But Wes is also like a nice guy, so it all works out. And throughout their conversation, like Wes is trying to like get information from Kurt about what he thought of Blaine and stuff. And Kurt has been being very coy and like trying not to appear desperate, basically, because he was very embarrassed about how he acted on the first day. And Wes is saying all these things like, "Oh, you know, he won't stop talking about your cookies and all this stuff." And Kurt is like, "Oh, well, that's nice." And Wes is texting the whole evening. And at some point he goes to talk to other people, and Kurt is left feeling very like out of his element, because he's like, "Oh, these people are very like," the way he describes it is like manly men, like like they like there's not a place here for someone like me who's more on the effeminate side, who has like a higher pitched voice, and like I can't go up there and sing because they're gonna like, you know, boo me off the stage. They're singing a lot of 80s stuff, and he's like, "I only sing like Mama Rose from Gypsy." And so he's about to take off. He's like, "All right, I'm done." And he's walking out the door when someone grabs him by the arm, and who could it be but our dear Captain Blaine Anderson? And it's like, oh, and then they flirt it up, and it's really fucking cute. And you kind of get the sense that Blaine is like, he's interested, but he's holding himself back for whatever reason. And I think Wes was the one that let it slip that, no, David did. In a conversation with David in the bar, Kurt finds out that Blaine's father passed away. And so whenever Kurt tries to bring up like his job as a firefighter, Blaine is very non-committal in his responses. He like tries to divert the conversation to other places. And Kurt makes an observation and says, I notice you don't like talking about your job. If I'm right, we can just talk about something else. And so Blaine very like obviously changes the subject, and Kurt is like, all right, signals received.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and they're having this really good conversation, and then this older gentleman named Bill comes up and like claps Blaine on the shoulder, and Blaine like immediately all the flirtatious like energy leaves his body, and he's like ramrod straight and no nonsense, basically goes into captain mode. And Bill's like, can we talk? And so they go outside and talk, and Kurt is waiting for like 10 minutes, and he has these minutes to like ponder and think, and he's like, oh, so he's not out to like the firefighters, and I can't do that. I can't be in another relationship with a guy who is ashamed of themselves and therefore ashamed of, our love. So I'm not going to do that to myself. And so he's leaving again. And as he's leaving, Blaine is coming in, and he's like, oh, you're leaving. And Kurt basically has to be like, listen, if you're not out, then, that's fine. But I just can't do that. And Blaine is like, oh, no, people know about me being gay. And Kurt said, oh, well then. And
great.
Yep. And then they have this awkward moment like at the entrance of the bar where Blaine is like, what does he say? Do you know bittersweet? And Kurt takes it literally, and he's like, oh, I'm familiar with bittersweet. That's like my middle name. And Blaine is like, what?
Yeah.
And then Kurt says, wait, what are you talking about? And Blaine says, oh, a coffee shop like a block down.
Kurt's like, I'm dumb. It's fine.
Yep, exactly. And says, if you want to show me around, give me a tour sometime, then, I'd be down. And Blaine is like, yes, I would very much like that. And so Kurt leaves like feeling on cloud nine, gets home, and is devastated to remember that he didn't give Blaine his phone number and thus giving him no way to like contact him. Fast forward to the next day. He's bemoaning this to Rachel, and Rachel's like, I can just give your number to David to give to Blaine. And Kurt is like, no, he has to. He's basically saying Blaine has to like pitch, he has to ask me out or do something, because I feel like I'm the one who's been showing all this interest and like showing the stuff, and I feel like he's holding back. So I want him to figure it out. Cut to a few days later, and Kurt has had an awful day at work. He's working as a costumer at like a theater company for like this. It almost seems like an opera type thing where like there's this diva who is like a genuine bitch to everyone.
You have gotten a little bit self-conscious about your swearing, haven't you?
A little bit. I don't know where it came from, but here we are.
She's a bitch.
Oh no, Erin! Yeah, she's a real bitch to everyone. And so Kurt is just like not taking it anymore. And he like tells her off and storms out of the theater. And he, in his bad mood, doesn't realize that he got off the subway stop too early. And so he's like, oh, fuck, now I have to walk like an extra 20 minutes to get home. And so he's walking, and he stops at a bodega to like get a snack or something, or get dinner. He's like, I'm not cooking. I just need to eat. And so he stops, and who does he see there but our friend Captain Blaine Anderson? And they have this whole cute like fumbling moment where Blaine is like, oh, I love the chicken enchiladas here from this bodega. And Kurt is eating has the wrapper of the bar he's about to eat in his mouth, and Blaine is like, oh, you can't eat those. And Kurt's like, oh, I heard that they're great and they have essential like minerals or whatever. It's really cute, really funny. Basically, Blaine asks for Kurt's number, and thus starts a courtship. Blaine and Kurt going on dates. They get to go, and like Blaine takes Kurt out and like shows him around the neighborhood and all the best spots. They get dinner, and they start to get to know each other some more. And throughout these dates, Kurt gets to know more about Blaine, including the fact that Blaine's father died while doing his duty as a firefighter. And Blaine is also very young. He's 26, and he's captain of this firehouse, which makes him very self-conscious and like feel like he doesn't feel like he deserves it, basically. So Kurt is having fun, and he really wants to be in a relationship with Blaine, but is scared of the firefighter aspect of it, obviously, and not knowing, what's going to happen there. And so Kurt is now Kurt is very actively trying to not get swept up in the emotion of things and like the whole honeymoon phase. He's being very methodical about it because he is no stranger to loss, having lost his mother and having almost lost his father to a heart attack. And he just doesn't want to go through that and all of this stuff. And it's increasingly more obvious that Blaine is absolutely fucking smitten with Kurt and just wants to be with him, but Kurt is like, I don't know. And at some point you find out that, or Blaine shares with Kurt that his father was not a warm man, and he was always like pushing him and very disapproving of him because Blaine came out, and there was a part of that his dad just wasn't able to accept for whatever reason. And so they were on a call to a very dangerous place, and his dad always went with Blaine because in Blaine's dad's mind, Blaine couldn't do anything right, so he always had to be there to supervise. And it culminates in like the floor giving out and them falling, and Blaine seeing his dad like inside a burning building, knowing that he can't go in there. Like his dad can't move. I think he's like his legs are broken or something, and he's not. It's just hard to see and all of this stuff. Oh, and one thing I forgot is basically Blaine's dad calls him a slur right before the floor goes out because he's angry, and he's like saying we got to keep moving and stuff. And so there's all this like anger and rage and guilt because Blaine feels like he could have pulled his dad out, but obviously he couldn't have, because then 2 seconds later the building collapsed and he would have died too. So now Blaine has shared that with Kurt, and Kurt's like, oh my god, holy shit, yeah. And then he goes to visit Blaine, and during one of those visits, the alarms go off. A huge fire is happening, and so Blaine has to go. And Kurt is just left there with his anxiety, and he's like, I don't know what to do, shit. And like Rachel calls him, and like she comes over, and they're both panicking in the firehouse. And eventually they get it under control. And even on the TV like news report, he sees Blaine off to the side, like talking to a cop about like giving a report. So now Kurt feels calm and waits at the firehouse for Blaine to come in, and then he like takes care of him. He's like, oh, what do you need? You need a shower? Let me turn on the shower for you. Here, take these like pain relievers. Here, drink some water. Let me take your clothes to the laundry chute. And is very doting basically. And it harkens back to a conversation he had earlier with his father where he was like, how do you know it's love? How do you know? Like, how do you know? And his dad is like, you'll know. Like the moment you see the person, you'll know. And it's life is hard basically is what it came down to, because Kurt is telling him like about Blaine's profession and not being sure and not wanting to lose anyone. And Kurt's dad is like, well, you don't really get that guarantee anywhere. People die all the time for whatever reason. You'll know that it's the right person if instead of wanting to run away, you run towards them whenever the shit goes down. And that's kind of what Kurt does when this call happens, and he's there to like mend wounds and like make sure that Blaine gets some rest, and it takes pain reliever and is hydrated and all this stuff. And so that's kind of a moment where Kurt is like, oh, okay, I can do this. And like he didn't think about it. It was just something he did because he realizes he cares for Blaine. And so they formalize their relationship, and they're like obviously very much in love. And then the fic kind of culminates with Kurt getting an opportunity to do a Fringe Festival like concert performance in Central Park as a soloist, and everyone comes and cheers him on. His family come and are sitting there with Blaine, and it's beautiful, and he sings a song dedicated to Blaine. Absolutely gorgeous. And then the fic ends, and that is our fic.
Wow.
Absolutely stunning. I loved this fic. I also, can I say fucking this what was the author the author's note to the first chapter? This was the last fic I read for this batch, and it says also, I am ultimately a romantic. I don't like character death. I love writing happy endings, and Kurt and Rachel live in my dream place in Carroll Gardens, blah blah blah, and all of this stuff. And I was like, thank heavens. There was a part of me that was a little scared from that one time that it was like, oh, this is like fluff, and then it was literally one of the most devastating pieces of art I'd ever experienced.
You mean Harriet?
Yep. I sure do.
We do love Harriet. Hi, Harriet.
Loved that fic, but oh my god, you almost killed me.
Yep. As is right with the world.
Yeah, and I was nervous about this fic saying something similar, but as it went going along, it was literally a fic full of just nice feelings. It was like all of the love and like the trust and the relationship blooming. I was like, yes, I love it. It was so good. I got to, where is it, chapter like 8? It was halfway through chapter 8 or something. I was so sure something was going to go wrong. I was like, we're missing like the big, like the other shoe dropping, where like I was so sure. Here's what I thought. I made this prediction out loud to myself. I was like, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be opening night for Kurt's show, and Blaine is going to be in like a hospital somewhere because something went wrong. He got a call and he had to be there and all this stuff. And I was so sure that's where we were going. So I cannot tell you the immeasurable joy I felt when it wasn't so, and Blaine was just there. It was just a normal night. It was a normal performance night. I loved this fic. It was so good. It also talked a lot about I really appreciated the introspection that Kurt has, and most of it is told through Kurt's point of view, if not all of it. Third person again, so sometimes we get a glimpse into what Blaine is thinking, but I loved the introspection that Kurt has about relationships and about life and like what it means to actually love someone, and realizing that nothing in life is guaranteed. You got to take everything day by day, and if you love someone, then it's worth it. And I loved that. I thought it was so well done. The characterizations were perfect. Oh, I loved it. I think we're falling into a trend, Erin, where now every time I see a Klain fic coming from LiveJournal, I'm gonna be like, oh, here we go, we're lightning in a bottle, take 3.
Oh no, that's not good, because I don't know if I have any more. I'm really glad that you enjoy this fic so much. I read it in approximately 2011.
Yeah.
Remembered it being a good firefighter fic, and then went, sure, I'll send this to Alan. Did I reread it? No.
And you know what? I knew that. I knew that in my heart of hearts. I was like, Erin didn't reread this.
Oh God, no. Of course not. I'm really glad there wasn't that moment of like the other shoe dropping, because I kind of remembered there being one, but then I was like, I don't think so. Maybe not. It's fine.
No.
So that worked out great.
It was all just lovely. It was a lovely, lovely time. I think if you're someone that is like me, this fic almost felt like tailor-made for me. It was like, I'm like such a romantic, and I love all of that like angsty stuff. Not too much angst, but just enough to make it like, ooh, there's an obstacle to them being together, but it's so small. It's not. It's like you squint and it's not really there.
There's a tiny little like garnish of danger.
Exactly. That's what I want in my fics.
A little twist of lime.
This was what are they called? This was the LaCroix of fanfic.
Hint of lime.
Exactly. Hint of angst.
It once shared a box with a strawberry. Anyway.
It was, yeah,
by this turnout.
Yes, I loved it. It was also interesting. So the other fic that I'm referring to that lives in LiveJournal and is a Klain fic that Erin sent me and I absolutely adored was from our first season. I think it was our texting AU.
Yep.
And here, what was it? It was
Little Numbers.
It was Little Numbers, but I know it ain't easy. And I adore that fic. I cannot tell you how much I love that fan fiction. It was so good. And this one hit a lot of the same like landmarks for me. However, so that being said, here are my critiques, my little notes.
Your critiques?
Yes. I thought that while I loved that there was no higher stakes, I thought that it should have had something toward the end. It just felt like everything was going right, but also I recognize that there's a place in fanfic where you just want to read about things going well for a character and character development. So that is like a very tiny, minor thing. Like that's like looking at a like expository arc type thing. And then the other thing that I had,
I'm making a face, y'all.
You're always making a face.
Well, I was like, you just spent this whole like 5 minutes being like, I'm so glad there wasn't another shoe to drop, and then being like, but I really wish the other shoe had dropped. And I'm like, make a choice.
but I spend like all that time gushing because that's what I love. But I do think that there's something to be said that maybe like for the dramatic arc, I think it needed something toward the end.
Fine.
But
I suppose.
Again, so minor. The other thing is of all loved that they didn't try to squeeze the entire cast of Glee onto this. It was like,
oh God, yeah.
It was Rachel, Kurt's family, so that includes like Finn and his dad and stepmom, and then Blaine and some of the Warblers, and that was it. Mm-hmm. I love that they didn't try to squeeze in like Mercedes or Santana or Artie or anyone else. Like I just thought it's so easy to like try to shove so many people in as characters that sometimes it becomes hokey, mm-hmm. and it pulls you out of that action. So I love that this didn't do that. What I was not as big a fan of was its treatment of Rachel, I think. I think that it lacked some of the depth of her character. She became very two-dimensional in my eyes. She was very supportive and very loving about Kurt, and like, but we didn't really get a sense of who she was as a character, because Rachel Berry is a character.
Yeah.
And for her to kind of become a cardboard cutout in the back is really fascinating to me. And there's this whole secondary plot point where Rachel is quote unquote seen or having a good time with David, but she doesn't want anything serious because her and Finn have finally called it quits for realsies, because Finn doesn't want to move to New York, and obviously Rachel needs to live in New York for her profession. And so I just felt like that wasn't fully explored, and I would have loved to have seen Rachel like have a moment where she was more humanized and like had desires and like about moving on or about doing something. And it just felt like it was literally a cardboard cutout of a person. But again, minor. I thought that like she more so served the purpose of the plot, which is good, but she wasn't a character on her own, which is fascinating when, again, you think Rachel Berry. But I also think that because she's such a character in the show, I think it's easier to miss and make just like a caricature basically of someone.
Yeah.
This was not a caricature, to be clear. It's just lacked a little depth.
Yeah. I think it rounded off a lot of her edges.
Yeah.
And that was a tendency in some of the Klain fics of the day, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's like, if you were writing a Klain fic and you wanted to really delve into their relationship, you didn't always have the time or the interest in like delving super deeply into all of Rachel's neuroses.
Yeah.
So it was sometimes a little easier to just make her like be slightly less present than she would have been otherwise.
Yeah, I feel that. And I agree. Again, very minor things. You know that saying where like, oh, you know you're doing a really great job when I have to nitpick. So here are my nitpicks. And then the last thing is something that the author has no control over. It's just unfortunate. There's a lot of links to like specific versions of the song that like Kurt sings at in his final concert, or like pictures that show like, oh, this is what their apartment would look like, or this is the firehouse that I think of when they're here. That would in theory be really like, oh, the really great supplements, and like really helps run out a story, makes it more like interactive in a way for me. All of those links are dead. Again, not something
Oh no.
not something that the author can control. At the time of them writing it, I'm sure they were there. Unfortunately, they're no longer there. And that brings me to kind of my biggest kind of drawback for this fic. If I had to find a drawback, it's that I loved Little Numbers so much, and that had pictures embedded, and that had links to songs that were still available, and the perfect immersion of that was incredible. It's almost, and if you're, I don't know how well you remember my review from Little Numbers, but my one thing from Little Numbers was that I wanted to see them not text, because it was fully a text fic, and I wanted to see them interact without that. So this is like kind of the opposite, where it's just like it's all interaction, and I loved it, but it just fell a little short. It felt like just the tiniest bit short. But here's the thing: when you're comparing anything to in my head perfection, because to me Little Numbers is, I'm rethinking about it, I think it might be my favorite fic we've read that I've read for the podcast. I think it's just so good. And I tell you, I cried tears listening to like the SoundCloud recordings that they had embedded into that fic. It was a perfect experience for me. And so this came ridiculously close, but didn't quite stick that nailing. And because it is a Klain fic, and because it is on LiveJournal, I think it's just the comparison is inevitable.
Yeah. And
that being said, oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and like, it's like almost not fair to do a comparison between fics when it's like we're talking about this one on under its own merit, is what I was trying to say.
Yep.
So it's like not fair to do the comparison if you're.
Yeah, it's not fair to like compare fics when you're trying to look at one fic based just on their merits.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel that. Yeah, and I agree. So, but those are just like things that were ruminated in my head. And again, if I had to nitpick, that would be it. Because everything else about this fic, I loved. I cried. I laughed. I giggled. I blushed. It was kind of the whole package for me.
Nice.
So, in the end, what I would give this fic, I would say a 4.99. Like literally as close to the 5 as it can get. Because it was so good.
I will take it. I win.
Oh man. Someone reset the averages.
It's about the average, baby. I will take it. Woohoo!
Nice. Thanks for sharing. Oh my god, that was.
You're welcome.
Ooh, I was scared. It's 100,000, little more than 100,000 words, and I was like, oh, Erin, why would you do this to me? But once I started reading, it was a quick read.
It's
it
a fast
was
one.
so fast.
Yeah,
loved it.
And the other thing too is like LiveJournal in general it didn't make it easy to have super long fics.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the ones that I was reading anyway did tend to be pretty episodic and pretty like, fast to get through, and they might have had like a lot of parts, but ultimately each part was pretty fast. And so yeah, I was like, I think this will be fine. I also like put it in the document early because I knew it was longer. Yeah. So I was like, I gotta get this to him soon.
I appreciate it. Episodic is a great word because I did have that thought too. Like as I was reading the chapters, there's 12 chapters and an epilogue. And as I was reading the chapters, I was like, wow, these are like really self-contained, which makes sense. And I dug it. Yeah. I thought it was great.
Woohoo! LiveJournal, man.
Woo!
It was the place to be like 10 years ago in the pre-AO3 days.
I wish that there was a way for me to better like search out like LiveJournal fics. Like I wish there was a better search function, but
there isn't one.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
So that's just one of my regrets, and
one day I will send you a fic in a thread, and then you will know the hellscape from which modern fanfic organization was born. Because that is an experience unto itself.
I would love it.
Yeah.
And if it was anything like this, I'm on board.
They usually weren't as good, but that's okay.
All right, well. I was trying to give us an upbeat ending, and we just rolled right up.
I'm too hot for that. It's so hot in my apartment, guys. It's fine. So that's the end of
we did it.
Yay, we did it.
Erin, where can people reach out to us if they want to like interact?
Nowhere. Leave me alone. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep, that's correct.
Just kidding. So you can reach out to us on Twitter. The Twitter is the best way to reach out to us because I keep that one on my phone, so it lets me know when you talk to us. You can reach out to Caitlin on the Tumblrs, which is theficlistpodcast.tumblr.com. She runs that thing, and it's magic, and it's great. And, occasionally I remember to check the messages there, too, which is great. But Caitlin, that's her bag. She's awesome. And then the Instagram exists. It's not a great way to get in touch with us. It does exist. Don't reach out to us on Facebook. Just don't. We have the name of it, but, no. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We're on SoundCloud. We're on Podbean, maybe. I don't know. Amazon Podcast. Who knows? And anywhere I could feasibly put an RSS feed, we're there. So make sure to subscribe. Leave us a review on Apple. If you feel like contributing to the creation of this podcast, like offsetting some of the costs of the podcast, you can donate to us on Ko-Fi, Ko-Fi. And that is, I think, ko-fi.com/the fic list or fic list, something like that. It's pinned on our Twitter. If you have recommendations for fics or have want to read along with any of the things that we have read, both of those Google documents are pinned on Twitter, so that's fun. Did I forget anything else? Oh, are we going to make the announcement in this episode?
I think we should. I'm riding a high from that last fic.
Do you want to make the announcement, or do you want me to do it?
I think you should.
So, friends, we have good news. We have joyous news. And that is that you are listening to panelists at this year's AwesomeCon DC 2021. Woohoo! So as you may remember, we were supposed to be panelists at AwesomeCon 2020. It was May 1st of 2020. LOL. It was not. It did not happen. They tried really hard. They did the right thing. They wound up canceling the event entirely because of the pandemic. Cool. Great. It was a bummer, but fine. We reapplied for this year's con, and we just recently got confirmation that we are panelists, and we're going to be hosting a panel, and it's going to be super awesome. I guarantee you that we will be our dorky selves. We'll be there. Caitlin's going to come. Caitlin's going to be our moderator because Caitlin is incredible. Yes. And she wanted to go to AwesomeCon for free. And I was like, of course. So, and we could not be more grateful to the AwesomeCon team. They have been really, really great over the last year in terms of communication and anytime I've had a question or anytime like we had concerns, they've been super awesome. So we are really happy to be going back, and we hope to see you there.
What she said.
Wow. Thanks, Alan. I mean, you're excited too, though.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I am beside myself.
Oh my God.
I am so excited. I've never been to a con. It's baby's first con.
It's baby's
And
first
baby's
con.
first panel.
To be fair, I've only been to one con before because I went in 2019.
Well, now don't you wish you had waited?
No. I met Hale Appleman at a con. I absolutely do not wish I waited.
Well, there it is.
So, but Caitlin took me to my first con, and Caitlin is a con veteran. And so I think the three of us are going to have a really great time. And I hope that we can share that good time with some folks. I think it's going to be great.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm just so ready.
Yeah, it'll be good.
It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely.
Long time coming.
Well, y'all, we will, we'll see you in the next episode. Well, we won't see you.
We will.
You'll hear us.
You'll hear us. And it'll be great. Don't forget to reach out to us on social media. I'm going to go take a very cold bath. I think that's the plan, because I need to bring my body temperature
I'm going to go shovel some food
down.
in my body.
Ooh, also a good idea. Food and bath? We'll see.
At the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. All right, this has been great. Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Goodbye.